And I'm going to show you 10 ideas, tips, and resources, especially some websites. Now, we were talking about science, and science can be very motivating. You don't necessarily have to teach science. There are some people out there that teach science. Elizabeth Greenaw, Elizabeth Ann Grenoble, she teaches science. She teaches a bunch of physicists in English, so it can be something very specific. But you don't necessarily have to, but these are some great lessons that are very hands-on. So there's different ways to get your students interested in using English, and one of the greatest reasons is, we'll go back to this in just a minute, I'm going to show you a video. But first of all, I want to tell you why teach science to language learners. Well, particularly, this is very motivating for those that are very young. I used to work in a hands-on science museum for 4 years, and that was my first training, my first professional training for being a teacher. And I found that many of the students who had problems with language and some other learning needs as well, they were really, and literacy needs as well, they really got into learning with science because it was very hands-on. Now, one of the big reasons that comes to mind is CLIL, and CLIL is making a big comeback in language teaching. Does anybody know what CLIL represents? C-L-I-L. Does anybody know what that acronym is? You should be familiar with it because for English teachers, it's a type of teaching methodology. It's content language integrated learning. And what it means is that, in other words, you teach a subject, and within teaching that subject, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Nora, for writing that out. Within that subject, you teach English. So in other words, you could teach geography. And then you don't teach specific grammar or anything like that. You pinch it out, or you point it out while this is being taught. And there's really good reasons behind this, why you would want to teach a subject and you would want to teach that subject in English. And that was a lot of my training. I actually did a CLIL course in Brazil recently in January. I was teaching teachers how to use CLIL. And it's a big movement in Brazil. And the reason it is because it ties into general education. In other words, English doesn't become separate from the curriculum. In other words, your Greek students, your French students, your Brazilian students, whatever type of students you teach, they learn English while learning their school studies. Now you can see why this would be very effective. The reason why is, first of all, because then they don't think of it as an extracurricular activity. They start to realize that English is just something that you use as part of learning, and it ties it in together. So it's a really effective way to teach. Another reason is it's experimental. In other words, it's hands-on. Kids get into the language. They get to see it used. They get to use the language to apply to their whole world around them, because science is all around us. So we learn about science, then the students get to go outside and they get to observe this in their everyday lives, and they get to understand it in English and have these conversations. It's very hands-on and engaging. Students get this kind of wow factor. As you can see, these two, I love this picture, these two great kids, and they're looking at the world and they're like, wow, you know, this is what's happening behind my world. So that's why teaching science to language learners is very motivating and exciting. I'm going to show you a video right now. It's one of my favorite ways to get students interested in hearing something in English. And I think videos are a great way to introduce science because it makes it more accessible. And there's a lot of different types of academics, something you call CALPS, which is, a lot of students know BICS, but you. It's from here. It's called YouTube Melody Sheet. And what they did is they took all these transcripts of some of the famous scientists all over the world, and they remixed them into this beautiful, beautiful type of music that explains science and is a great introduction to science. So I'm going to play for you this video. We'll start it here. It's called the Symphony of Science series, and that's the link. I'll put the link in the chat box in just a minute. First, I want you to listen to it. So tell me if you can listen to it. Playing very well. Very interesting. Let's see if I can do it again, and I'll do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just actually share with you the link because it's not coming on here. And let's see, hide that. Sorry about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll share with you the link right now. And it's called the Symphony of Science. And then you can go and you can listen to it. It's really beautiful. I'm really upset that it's not showing. Okay, so here's the Symphony of Science channel. And maybe you can hear it.
One species turn into another. How is it that we find ourselves surrounded by such complexity, such elegance? The genes of you and me, the genes of you, you're all made of DNA. We're all made of the same chemical DNA. We're all made of DNA. Made of the same chemical. Only the fittest survive. And that is the key. Natural selection. That is the key. We are surrounded by endless forms. Most beautiful, most wonderful. Evolution, the greatest show on earth. There is grandeur in this view of life. Most wonderful. Evolution, the greatest show on earth.
Okay, so I'm going to come back. And you didn't get to see the video, but you got to hear it. And the video is very, very, very beautiful. And it's very inspiring. So what they have done is Melody Sheep is kind of like a remix DJ. And what he has done is he has taken all these speeches by Carl Sagan, by the head of the Astronomy Institute, and these things that would be very inaccessible. If you heard it, you would listen to the research paper about evolution and stuff like this. And he's made it into beautiful music. So that way you can see the pictures and you can get an understanding. And there's even transcripts of it as well on YouTube. So the students, it becomes more accessible to them. And it's really great for adults to be able to study this. And then they can talk about really interesting things. Like, for example, with the one that we heard about evolution that we just heard right now, it shows a bunch of clips of worms and things. And what kind of discussion questions could you come up with? Well, you could start talking about whether or not they believe in evolution. Do they agree? Do they disagree? You can talk about their the reasonings behind it. And so there's so much discussion that can come out of this as well. And you can create discussion that way. Okay, so one of the tips before I show you some ideas and activities of what you can do is, first of all, use graphic organizers. They're very good. They're cognitive maps. There's different kinds of graphic organizers you can use. This is a particular type of one. Basically, graphic organizer is anything where students can go either, they can do this on an interactive whiteboard quite effectively, or you can actually look up a previous, actually I'll give you a Pinterest link that I did right now. And with this pin interest link, you can find my a bunch of graphic organizers that you can just print. And then the students can get into pairs, or they can do this by themselves, and they can go ahead and they can start categorizing what they're going to be learning or experimenting about. And that's something that we're going to see in a little bit, because you experiment when you use science. And so here's my graphic organizers list, so that way you know about that. But this is a way to kind of introduce them to the very, very hard concepts that come with learning about different kind of science experiments and phenomena. So let me go ahead and get that link for you. There you go. And then you can even do different cool ones as well. But no, where did we go? Why is this thing not working well? Okay, so this is one type of graphic organizer that you can see here. It's in 3D one, and they made a diagram basically of the planets. So this is a really cool one that a kid did. You have the planets here, and then they have this circle. They have the space shuttle here, and then they have astronaut, planet, sun. So this is a different type of 3D graphic organizer. So it helps them to really think about and see the visual, but it's very hands-on and fun as well. Another tip that I would recommend is to use diagrams, and this is another one. This is called the Know, What, and Learn type of graphic organizer, and this is very effective. So before you study a science concept or something, like, let's say you're going to make volcanoes, well, then you can have them fill out in the K part, what do they already know about volcanoes? And then they can tell you things like, they can write everything that they know. And what it does is it ties their previous amount of learning into what they are about to learn. And then the W part is what they want to learn. And finally, at the end, after they learn, after they do the experiment, after they do their hands-on project, then they write down at the very end what they learned about it. And this really helps them with the vocabulary and the language as well. But it's great for cognitive development. Another tip is to use diagrams. You can use things, and Jeremy talks about this in his new CLIL book. Jeremy Harmer, and he actually uses the life cycle of a butterfly. But the great thing about different science things is there's a lot of different posters. You can Google and you can find images out there, or you can even find huge posters that talk about the different life cycles of things when you study plants or animals or bugs. You can study really cool things that kids love to study. And so you can look at things and you can have students begin to draw themselves. They can even draw, if you're studying, for example, butterfly, they can draw the stages and then they can put in the vocabulary that's needed. And so there's different things that you can do with that as well. And there's books that support this kind of learning. For example, what would be a very popular children's book that you could use when you talk about the life cycle of butterflies, or if you're studying butterflies? Does anybody have an idea? I can tell you the one that I use. Because what is a butterfly start off as? A caterpillar. So I use the hungry caterpillar with my 4 to 6 year olds when they're learning. We use the Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, and then we actually study the life cycle of a butterfly. You can conduct different experiments. Now, this was one of the ones that the kids used to love. And when you conduct these experiments, what you do is you basically you get to do things like you get to make predictions, and that's always part of this, is that you do predictions whenever conducting an experiment. So you get a film canister, and usually you can go to a film canister place where they develop film, and you can ask them if you can have these for free. That's what we used to do, and they used to let us. Or you can take like little pill things from medication. And what you do is you put it inside there, and then you drop an Alka-Seltzer in there. I don't know if you know what an Alka-Seltzer is. And then you put it in, and it just jumps up and it pops. It makes a big popping thing. And the kids love it, but they can predict how high, if it's going to break apart, who will have the biggest one, whether they should, if they break it up in half, if it'll go halfway, and different things like that. So it's very, very, very cool as well when they get to do different types of experiments. And that's the part, is you want them to experiment, you want them to write down notes, you want them to make predictions, so they're using language. Here's another one that activity that I like, which is sink or float. And this is one that I showed the ones in Brazil. And so you get something like a clear water. Okay, so we're going to do sink or float right now. Okay, and then they would actually do a graphic organizer with this. the object of this, you can use for young learners as well, is you have students come in and they experiment whether something's going to sink or whether it's going to float. Okay, so we do have a few things. Let's see. We have a pen. Do you think my pen is going to sink or my pen is going to float? You can type it in the chat box. Okay, well, let's see. Let's throw it in. And you were right. It floated. Yay. Okay, so now we have, let's see. I have a wrapper. Do you think this wrapper is going to sink or float? Okay. It floated. Very good. See, you all are so smart. But what you can do is you can have the kids, you take them outside, they collect things, leaves, rocks, cans that they find the trash, and then they have to draw these inside something like this, a graphic organizer. They draw the object. It's the same thing as a KWL chart, except here they're drawing the object, and then they have to check, is it going to sink or it's going to float? The vocabulary comes in is that they have to name the object. They have to write out leaf. So you can do this with very young learners, and it doesn't do anything that terrible. So somebody wants to see something float. Okay, how about the Alka-Seltzer? Do you think the Alka-Seltzer is going to sink or float? And then you can talk about the why. You can say things like mass, volume. You can teach them things like that. Heavy. There's a lot of vocabulary that comes out of this. So what do you think the Alka-Seltzer is going to do? Okay, so Ella says sink. Okay, let's see. Sink. People think it's going to sink. And it sank! And you can see it fizzing as well. Okay, so it's a fun activity, and the kids each come and then they experiment, and the whole class says sink or float. And you can use grammar as well. You can say, okay, you have to, the statement is, it will sink. You're learning about predictions, and you can study the language of using will versus going to, and you can say you're making a prediction, so that's why we use this type, will versus going to. I believe it will sink, you know, or it is going to sink or float. So you're tying the grammar in, but it's not the main focus. The focus is the experiment, and the kids have a lot of fun doing this. But even adults have fun doing this, because I always do this with teachers and they love it. Spider web observation. So this is really good, especially if you have something like a mobile device, or the kids, if they just have a simple camera. And what they do is they have to find a spider. It's very simple. They find a spider. They take a picture of this spider. And then every day they take a picture of the spider and its web. And they're seeing that how the spider started with the web all the way to the beginning. Now, let me give you a hint. And you have to be careful with this, and be careful with the students as well. Or you can do a spider web that's outside of the classroom. If you mess up the spider web, it doesn't matter. Because what's going to happen is the spider is going to rebuild that web. And each species of spiders build a very different type of web. There's about 80,000 species of spiders in the world, and they do very, very cool things. So you can identify different types of spiders. I'm sorry, just on the chat box, Faisal said it's safe to use frogs. Yeah, if you're doing a dissection, you can do dissections, and those are kind of cool too. But you have to get parent permission if you do dissections and stuff. So the spider web is a really great one, because every day they take a picture and they see how the spider builds that web, and they can draw the spider web that they predict that it's going to make, well, in this one with spider web observation, there is no animal cruelty, because they're just observing what the spider is doing, and then they write about it. They say today they can draw it, or they can put the picture, they can blog about it on Posterous. Remember to write about it. Today the spider did this. They can describe the color of the spider. They can say what particular species of spider it is. They're classifying it, and they do this by the colors, what it looks like, and then they're saying what happens and how long they're going to predict that it's going to take a week to make the spider web. It's going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take 3 weeks. How does the spider particularly make the web? So there's different types of things that they can do with this kind of thing. They can observe another different types of a spider, and they can see which spider makes the web faster and how they make it differently. So they learn a lot about that as well. And they might see things along the way, because that's a great thing about science. It's life, and life happens. So they might see a fly one day, and they might see the spiders eat the fly. And they get to make an observation. They write down their feelings about this or what they study. But they think it's so cool because they're looking at things that are around them every day, and they're studying it, and they're learning English at the same time. The other one is study the stars. I really like this kind of experiment, and this is one that I use with my students. I actually have a planetarium. It's a mobile planetarium, and it comes in a box. You don't have to buy one, though. You can go to pretty much any €1 dollar store, 100 yen shop, the very cheap shops, and you get these glow-in-the-dark stars, and it tells you how to make the constellation. So you just put them on the wall, and it glows in the dark. And then from there, you're able to do things like you're able to see the constellations. And then the students talk about the constellations. What we do is we usually take my one mobile device, and we Google whatever their birthday is. I see if they have a zodiac, what their constellation is, and we lay down on the floor. We look at the stars and the skies, and the kids have a lot of fun doing this. And we talk about their different types of different types of zodiac signs and their star sign, and then we try to find it, and then they read a description of what their character or personality is supposed to be like. Like, I'm Scorpio, so it usually says vain with the temperament of being or something like that. And then we say whether we agree or disagree of the zodiac. And we have these great discussions where we're just laying down and we're looking at the stars and, the planet. There's a really great app for this as well that I love to use. Let me go ahead and show you this app. Now, I got this for free. It's called the Google Sky app, but you can find one that shows constellations as well. And this is what it does. In real time, if you're connected to the internet, it'll show you the stars that are really in the sky at the moment, and where they're placed. And it'll show you the constellations quite easily. You see it? It uses augmented reality. And this is this Google Sky chart. So the kids love to see this. They love to move it around, and we have great discussions of it. And then afterwards, talk about the stars. Say, you can have a discussion on imagine life would be like on various planets. And then have students create real models of these planets with clay or Play-Doh. And whatever they get, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be wrong. And then they can do a creative writing component. They can develop their own alien species. They can write how this alien species would live on this particular planet, and you can study the different types of components within the planet. Like, for example, Mars, is there any water? Well, now they found water on Mars. They have these red rivers, and then they can say, different things that their aliens have that really produce this type of so they can go ahead and they can say what will survive, and so it becomes creative as well. Okay, we used to create cloud catchers. A cloud catcher, basically you get something like a plexi board or even a cardboard box, and then you put something like cellophane. Cellophane is a type of shiny material, and what it does is it mirrors. It's a mirror reflection. So you want to get this type of paper. It's almost like construction paper, but it's not. It's very shiny, and then you post it on, and what it does is that it reflects whatever it is. So it reflects the clouds in the sky, and then you can observe the cloud patterns. Now, there's different types of cloud patterns. I'm going to go ahead and put this particular one here. It's called cloud types, and it basically, there's low clouds, there's middle clouds, there's high clouds, and there's clouds of vertical development, but they're also called very specific things like stratus, alto, stratus, cirrus, and cumulus. Now, you might see that's not very important English to learn, but that's not the point. The point is they get to see here, they have games and diagrams, and they get to understand that a particular type of shape of a cloud, they can determine the weather. So they can say, oh, this is a cirrus cloud. I think it's going to rain today. And then that's where the English comes about, is they can predict the weather and they can identify the patterns. And this helps them because every day they'll look at the sky and they'll look at the clouds and they'll say, I think it's going to rain today, teacher, because I see cirrus clouds. And they use this kind of English, and it's you know, you predict the weather, you talk about the weather every day. That's kind of normal conversation, but they have more things to back it up, and it becomes more interesting than just teaching them about the weather, because the weather is never really that exciting of a conversation. But if you say, hey, I see the clouds, and the clouds look gray or ominous or something like that, and they're cirrus clouds, and it becomes suddenly very interesting. Plants are fantastic. So somebody said earlier that bugs might be something that Ella did that kids can't do because they might be afraid of spiders. But that's okay, because they're not afraid of plants, and you can get different plants of the region, of your particular region, and they can learn the names of the plants. There's great apps out there. You can just, it's free, a lot of the apps, and you can identify trees and things like that. You just gotta look it up for your particular region. They have some for the UK, but that wouldn't really help you if you're not in the UK. And so what you do is you plant, and then for the whole entire duration of the semester, each day the kids get to, they have to study the plant for a week and observe its stages. Now, there's different kinds of predictions they can make. Don't let it only be where they see if the plants will grow, but you can test theories out. For example, one common theory out there is that if you talk to a plant, that the plant's going to grow faster. So you can have another plant that every day you assign your students to talk to, and you can see if that plant actually grows faster. Another theory is how much light you have on the plant, natural light versus no light. So that can be another plant. Another plant could be if you add aspirin. Sometimes they say if you add aspirin to the plant, then it makes the plant grow faster. So you can do these different predictions. Your students write about it, and then they say, they can even write down the conversation they had about with the plant, whoever the student was, and every day you see which plant grows the best, and then, you know, that becomes the experiment in the English that they use, and the kids get really excited about it. Field observations with subject matter experts. That's what an SME is, a subject matter expert. So you can invite different people from around the community. Is you can have different, we used to call different businesses around here. There was, we would call it the water system, and we would ask for an engineer from the water system, or we would ask a meteorologist. We would ask paleontologists, so different types of community subject matter experts. They know English. They use English in their jobs. So it's fantastic to ask them, hey, would you volunteer and would you come, and we're going to go on a field trip and we're going to observe the water or something, to do an experiment specifically with the students in the class. And this is a really good thing to do because, one, the students get to see that someone in their country with this career is using English for their career, so it makes it more real. It gives them a motivation. Hey, one day they make the connection. I'm gonna, even though I live in Brazil or even if I live in Greece, I will have to use English in my job. If I decide to become an engineer, or I work with the water system, or I'm a meteorologist or something, I'll have to use English. So find different types of careers where they use English, even if they stay around the area, and then you can have them come and they can do presentations about this. They can do a Pecha presentation, or they can make a video about their experiment, and they have a lot of fun with these subject matter experts. Another one is mold madness. So what you do is you can take different types of food. You can take bread, you put it inside a clear lab kind of cup, and then you observe various foods mold over a few weeks, and you can make predictions, keep an observation journal, and take pictures. Kids love this because it's disgusting and gross. And so kids seem to love this kind of thing as well. And you can see which things they can make predictions and say, oh, well, I think it's going to turn green, or I think it's going to have fuzz, or they can do cheese, they can do, and plus they learn the different types of food. I mean, we have to teach food to students, right? So we get different types of food. We see it over a week. It's 4 or 5 days, and the kids and students just love this. Even teenagers love it because it's gross and this is things that they like to do. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a few types of things that in the smell. Well, life is smelly sometimes. These are what kids like to do, though, so I think it's not necessarily so bad. You can do it in a corner of the room, and it's fine. You can put it inside the aquarium or something. We're almost wrapping up here, but here's a few places that you can actually find great activities. This is an interactive ESL book. It's made for English language learners. It's my friend John from he made a science book for English language learners called Life Topics, and now he put it all online. So let me tell you what, it has different chapters, like 22 chapters on different things: health, seasons, different types of vocabulary. And then what it does is here, you have the chapter. This is what it looks like. It has a pretty picture. This one's called The Beauty of Seasons. It has the vocabulary. It has the vocabulary in Japanese in case you teach Japanese students. That's really nice. You can listen to it read. You can listen to the chapter read. These are very small readings. The students have different types of readings. This is the reading. It's very easy. It's made for language learners. It tells a story. Here it talks about Japan. Spring is warmer, things like that. The other thing it does is it has an active outline, and it has different types of quizzes and stuff like that that go along with the readings and pictures and stuff. So it's a great book to look at. There's so many different topics out there, things that you can teach in class. We teach about the seasons. We teach about health. We talk about health issues, sports, psychological issues, and all of that is within this. So you don't have to teach it necessarily science. These are topics that can just be taught in class, regular English classes. Another one is EnglishAttack.com, and if you go to EnglishAttack.com, they actually have different types of science fiction movies. Now, kids love, even teenagers, they love science fiction movies. So just go to the science fiction section, and then they have quizzes on it. They have short videos. They even have karaoke based on it. So the students will really, really love that a lot. Brain Pop Junior is another one. Brain Pop Junior has little animated videos. Some of them aren't free, but some of them are. They even have an English language learner one that talks about all these different kinds of cool things like habitats and space and weather and matter and all of these kind of things that you can teach the students. It has cool diagrams. It has animations. You see a little robot talking, and so you can see little cool videos, and you can even write them, and you can ask Brain Pop, students can, specific questions. KidsDiscovery.com, you have different types of bugs, you have different types of things, puzzles and online games and quizzes and activities and experiments that they can use as well. So that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for coming today, and I hope you got a lot of great ideas to use with your learners. And thank you for coming. And if you have any ideas to share or any questions, I'll accept them right now. You can find all of these resources. I'll even add the slides very soon, in just a little bit. And it's at ELT links, and it is case sensitive. But you can find all the links there. So thank you so much for coming. Have a great, great, great weekend. And yes, Rasha said build models, and that's really good as well. The students can do things with a hanger and with string, and they can build like planet models. They can build bug models, classification. There's so many things that you can do with that. So thank you, Rasha. That's a very good idea to build different types of models. Any other ideas? Okay, Rasha said that they made cells from jelly and kinds of candy for the parts inside. Okay, cool. Very good. We've made taffy before. Oh, and then they ate them. See, that's the cool part about it. There's actually, if you Google make ice cream, there's experiments on how to do ice cream in a bag. And actually, I can show that to you on how to make ice cream in a bag. And this is a great kind of experiment as well. And they get to taste and eat the ice cream afterwards. But the thing about it is to make sure that when you make it, it's a little messy. So prepare for all of these things because it can be a little bit messy. But hey, kids like making messes. Okay, so Ella says growing salt crystals. This is another really great experiment that the kids love as well. And I put the link up there to make ice cream in a bag. Oh, wait. I don't know what that is. Oh, sorry. But I did put the experiment to make ice cream in a bag. Yeah, okay, and then Rasha says they use straws to wrap them with brown paper and put threads attached inside to attach leaves and make parts of plants and take photos. Really good ideas in here. Tons and tons of great ideas. And then they displayed them. And that's the great thing is that they can display these things and they can take them home or they can take pictures of them and they can put them on a wiki or they can put them on a website and then